You're listening to As I Was Saying. I'm April Simpkins, and each episode we unpack what's quietly messing with your mental health at work and how to take your peace back without quitting everything. This podcast is for you if just pushing through is wrecking your peace. I'm breaking down the stuff we all deal with and giving you tools to actually do something about it. Welcome back to As I Was Saying, the podcast where we talk out loud about the things people whisper about at work. I'm your host, April Simpkins, and today we're asking a loaded question. Who's controlling the thermostat in your workplace? No, not the one that always defaults to Arctic tundra in meeting rooms. I mean the engagement thermostat, the one that determines whether your people are showing up excited to contribute or just showing up because, well, they have bills. Engagement starts at the interview. It doesn't magically appear on day one. It really starts during that interview process. When candidates hear what it's like to work there, what you value, how you support your people, how feedback is handled, they're doing a kind of emotional calculus. And this is where faith and trust comes in. Faith is the hope that what you say you'll do during that job interview, you'll actually do. And trust is when you've proven it consistently. Engagement is built when faith becomes fact, and that fact breeds trust. Let's talk about communication, which is the thermostat's remote control. Because if trust sets the thermostat, communication is how you adjust it. You know, too often workplace communication is like one-dimensional. It's text, it's email, it's Slack, Teams, the bulletin board. There's no tone, no nuance, and no real clarity. And when you leave room for interpretation, people will interpret, and not always favorably. And you know what? Here's the kicker. Communication isn't just about frequency. It's about clarity and ownership and being proactive. Engagement? Well, it's a lot like those road trips we used to take all the way back in the 70s. So buckle up because I'm going to share a story. Let's call this kind of a tale of two teams. First, there's team ready, the driver on it. The car was packed, gassed up, and everyone knew where we were headed, how long it would take, and what their role was for the journey. Now, the driver and the person riding shotgun had reviewed the map the night before, or maybe it was that morning over coffee, because yes, we were going to do this thing right. The shotgun passenger, their job was to manage the map and keep an eye out for exit signs. One of the backseat passengers, they were in charge of handing out snacks. Shout out to those warm bologna sandwiches wrapped in tinfoil. And if you know, you know. And their job was collecting trash. The other person in the back, they were on bathroom duty. Their job was spotting rest stops every 2.5 to 3 hours, like their life depended on it. Everyone understood their job, the destination, and the measurable metric, what time we should get there. So, what does Team Ready do? They crank up the 8-track, call dibs on Punch Bug, and cruise. Now, that, my friend, is a leader who communicates clear expectations, defined roles, and a sense of shared purpose. It's no surprise that everyone stayed engaged. Now, let's talk about Team Wing It. The driver told everyone where they were going, but didn't mention how long the trip would take. Nobody packed snacks because there are restaurants along the way. And there were no bathroom breaks planned. Just go when we stop, like for gas or food, and rolls, none. Now, at first, everyone seemed in good spirits, doing their own thing, until one poor soul in the back seat, bored out of their mind, asked the legendary question, "Are we there yet?" "No," of course the driver's going to snap. "We've got a long way to go." Now, the other passenger in the back, increasingly hangry, chimed in. So the driver said, "Fine, look for a sign with a restaurant." And that was a big mistake because everyone wanted something different. Burgers, tacos, fried chicken. The mood shifted. Not long after eating, someone had to use the restroom. And the Request came with another, "Are we there yet?" And just like that, the tensions escalated. The driver started venting about how he was doing everything himself. And quite frankly, he kind of was, because he hadn't given anyone else a role. No plan, no resources, no room for input. People stopped talking. Then they stopped caring. They mentally checked out. And that's how you go from good intentions to a car full of disengaged, frustrated passengers. Why? Because the leader or driver communicated poorly, planned reactively, and expected everyone to stay engaged with no direction, no tools, and no voice. So I'll ask you, what group would you want to ride with? Tools matter more than you think. See, engagement isn't just about how people feel and creating excitement. It's also about having what you need. You can't expect high performance when people don't have the right tools, the right training, or the right support, like mentorship, clear development paths, functioning equipment. Those are basic needs. And failing to meet them doesn't just lower engagement, it tells employees they're not a priority. So let's talk about the three temperatures of engagement. Engagement, first of all, isn't binary. It kind of lives on a spectrum. So let's talk about engaged employees. They typically, statistically, make up about 33% of your team. These folks are emotionally invested. They believe in the mission. They bring ideas, energy. They bring solutions. And they'll put up with a lot unless they feel like they're dragging the rest of the team uphill. Now let's talk about the unengaged employees, and they typically make up about 57% of your team. They're not disruptive. They show up, they do their job, and go home. They won't do any more or less than what's expected. There's no spark, no initiative. They're on autopilot. We often refer to them as the working unemployed. And then there's the disengaged employees. They can be roughly 10% of your team. These are the ones who have mentally packed their bags, but they haven't left. They complain, they resist feedback, and undermine morale. And they're loud, emotionally loud. Their negativity is contagious. And here's the wild part, right? Your engaged employees will tolerate unengaged coworkers if the unengaged coworker is just a nice person. But engaged employees absolutely will not work with disengaged coworkers. Someone's going to leave. And mark my words, the one who leaves is the one who does not have the attention of leadership. Now, engaged employees want things like structure, a plan, autonomy. Disengaged employees require control and discipline and correction. And engaged employees will not work with disengaged employees. And the one who leaves is the one who does not have the attention of leadership. So if leaders are micromanaging, adjusting policies to make them more controlling and focusing heavily on disciplinary measures, I can assure you your best employees are going to exit stage left. Now, how do you reignite engagement? Because it can't be mandated, but it can be inspired. And here's a few techniques that actually work. One, create a culture of feedback. Don't wait for the annual survey. Make listening a habit. And most importantly, allow yourself as a leader to be held accountable to what you say, what you promise, and also the things you failed to deliver. Create space to catch the issue before it becomes resentment. Number two, recognize the little things. Appreciation shouldn't be reserved for grand slams. Recognize the base hits. Say thank you. Celebrate efforts. Make praise a practice, not just some policy. I remember years ago, a CEO telling me that he's not going to thank people for showing up and doing their job. And I explained 2 points to him. First, appreciation should not be part of your reward and recognition initiative, which is often reserved for special contribution. However, when you tell an employee that you appreciate their dedication or their commitment and their effort, it gets wrapped in an understanding that that employee chose to continue working for or with you. If they're an at-will employee, that's a choice they're making every day. Personally, as a leader, I had no problem thanking my team for going the extra mile for a client or taking care of something before it became a bigger issue. Whether it was part of their responsibility or not, I just gave an acknowledgement with a thank you that I see you and I appreciate what you're doing. Those nods take very little effort, but might just be the thing that an employee who is struggling with burnout and anxiety might be what they need to make them feel seen and valued. And that's not nothing. Number 3, connect the dots to purpose. Remind people why their work matters. Where are we going with all of this? What's the vision? Whether it's helping a client, supporting a team, or moving the company forward, people need to feel they're not just pushing paper and killing time. Engaged employees need purpose. 4th, hey, loosen the reins. Micromanagement will kill engagement faster than a slow Wi-Fi connection. Give people autonomy. Let them pitch, lead, create, innovate. Freedom fuels buy-in. Now, let me give you 3 key takeaways for our leaders. If you want engagement, stop reaching for control and start building structure. Control says, do it my way. Structure says, here's the path. Let's walk it together. Engaged teams don't need micromanagement. They need clarity, consistency, and the right environment to thrive. Set expectations, remove those roadblocks, and trust your people to rise. That's how you lead with intention, not tension. See what I did there? For engaged employees, you're doing more than your job. You're setting the pace, the tone, and the culture. And that energy matters. Your presence makes meetings better, projects stronger, and teams more united. But remember, being engaged doesn't mean carrying the weight of a disengaged team on your back. Advocate for support. Set your boundaries. And know that your consistency is your superpower. We see you, and your example is more powerful than you know. And here's a word for the unengaged employees. You're not wrong to feel disconnected. Sometimes it's the job. Sometimes it's the culture. And sometimes it's burnout wearing a name tag. But before you assume it's all on the company, ask yourself, do I know my why here? Are you doing work that matters to you? Do you understand how your role fits into the bigger picture? And if not, that's a conversation worth having with your manager, a mentor, or even yourself. Reconnection doesn't always mean a new job. Sometimes it starts with a new perspective, a new goal, or a renewed sense of purpose. You owe it to yourself to find work that doesn't just occupy your time, but somehow fuels your growth. So, who's controlling the thermostat? If nobody's paying attention, don't be surprised when people start reaching for the exit. Thanks for tuning in to As I Was Saying. And if today's episode made you rethink how your team feels at work or how you feel at work, send it to a colleague, a manager, or someone stuck in the office at 72 degrees and falling fast. Thanks so much for listening to this episode. Please remember to subscribe, like, and share this episode so others can hear this message and be inspired. Our next episode is all about remote work. You know, it sounded like a dream until your laptop became your only coworker and your kitchen table turned into corporate headquarters. So in our next episode, we're talking about the very real mental toll of remote work isolation, from spotty Wi-Fi to non-existent boundaries. What started as a flexible perk has become, for many, a one-way ticket to burnout. So let's talk about it. This is As I Was Saying with April Simpkins. Be well.